Hi guys, this is gsndom.com and I'm here with the Huawei P10 Plus for a full review. This is the bigger and better version of the Huawei P10. Both of them were unveiled at the Mobile World Congress 2017 and we've already unboxed this phone and also had a look at the P10. Now it's time for the P10 Plus, scheduled for a first quarter launch this year, and it's priced at $755 in a 4GB RAM version or $861 in the 6GB RAM version, which we actually have. It also brings 120GB of storage. Now let's talk about the design first. So this is basically like the P10, only bigger. It's got some strong iPhone 6 vibes, the entire iPhone 6 and iPhone 7 series. For example, it borrows the antenna design from the iPhone 7 and the Meizu Pro 6, as you can see here and at the top here, while the core of the design and the format is kept from the Huawei P9 Plus. The difference, this phone is a bit more rounded. If you look at the corners and the general form factor, it's like a more rounded Huawei P9 Plus. It hasn't evolved hugely from that model and the size hasn't changed that much, so thickness 6.98mm and weight 165 grams compared to the P9 Plus's 7mm and 162 grams. At least this one is about 23 grams lighter than the iPhone 7 Plus, which is no small feat. The colors are quite interesting here, so aside from the usual white, black and silver, you get the special dazzling blue, the famous greenery and rose gold. The phone is quite long for a 5.5 incher, not iPhone 7 Plus long, but still quite comfy to use even with a single hand. You get a good grip, the buttons on the side are comfy, and this home button here certainly grows on you with these special gestures, which we'll discuss later on. In the end, it's a comfy phone, well built, elegant, metal unibody design and slightly curved glass panel at the front, also small bezels, but in the end the format hasn't changed very much over the past years. I also have to mention that the facade tends to get quite smudged after being used for a long time. Speaking of the facade, let's talk about the display. This one that we're dealing with here is a 5.5 incher with a Quad HD resolution and Gorilla Glass 5 protection. It's got an IPS Neo LCD panel and the P10 had a 5.1 incher with Full HD, so the Quad HD is certainly welcome here. Now to test the screen, I'm going to have to rely on the Videos app, which is here, and let's have a go and a look at our usual test clip. So options included here are pop-up play, which works like a charm, and we also have settings and audio enhance. Now as far as impressions about the actual viewing experience go, the screen is bright, but I feel there's a bit too much white here. The colors are okay, a bit close to oversaturation. We got wide view angles, at least horizontally, while vertically you sometimes lose a bit of the image's brightness, so you'll see that in a minute. So regular image, and if you tilt it like this, you certainly lose a lot of brightness, so tilting vertically makes you lose that. In the end, once again, bright and too much white, excuse me. Got okay colors, wide angles and a pretty solid contrast. So it's time to see what this screen looks like under the microscope. These are the RGB stripes pixels we have here. And then we proceeded to measure the brightness and achieve the variety of results: 398 lux units, 404 lux units and 411 lux units. As you can see, it's not uniform, but you cannot see that with the naked eye. The main result is the biggest one and it's 411 lux. It may be solid but not flagship solid. At least it beats the OnePlus One and the LG Nexus 5X, but once again not impressive for a flagship because it scored the 78th position from all of the phones we've tested, and actually it seems higher in real life. Anyways, this score places us below the Huawei Mate 8, Honor 8 and even the older Honor 6 Plus. We also have special options for this screen, which you can find here, display section, and we got wallpaper, we got view mode, with options that remind me of the iPhones small, medium and large, available here as well. We got font size, screensaver and eye comfort. You can filter out the blue light so you can sleep better with a color temperature slider. We got brightness, also got color temperature with this palette of colors to choose from, sleep and auto rotate screen, and that's about it. Just having a good brightness is not enough. Then there is also that problem with the angles and the colors, so the screen is a bit underwhelming. Now let's talk about the other hardware. Let's see what we're dealing with here. So we have the potent Kirin 960 processor, the octa-core chip from Huawei. It was also found on the Mate 9, and it has a Mali G71 GPU as far as we know, and it's accompanied by 4 or 6 gigabytes of RAM depending on the version you have. We have the version with 6 gigabytes of RAM, and you can also buy the phone with 64 or 128 GB storage plus micro SD card slot. Of course, since this is a flagship after all, with the most powerful CPU that Huawei has to offer, it doesn't know what the word lag means, so you can open up a ton of apps. There will be absolutely no problem with lag, with delay, no problem whatsoever. You can start using any app you want, it will start up like a champ without any sort of delay. Gaming also checks out. I'm talking about our usual Riptide GP Renegade, which is shown here. It's our benchmark game. It takes the graphics all the way to the max, so let's see it in action. Okay, here we go. It already started faster than the average game. Quick race, Fountain Park, and here we go. Right from the menus you can tell something good is happening. The water looks incredibly crisp. So that Mali GPU is really handling it. Very nice frame rate. I actually see it has a higher frame rate than the average phone. Nice textures, shadows, whatever you want. You can also tweak them from the options. So nice gaming, but can it take the benchmarks? Let's find out. So we go to the gallery, screenshots, and let's see what we're dealing with here. First of all, I'm going to start off with the famous quadrant, and in quadrant we scored on the 9th place, quite impressive. It beats the Huawei Nova and the Galaxy S6 Edge, but scores below the Huawei P10 and the LG G5. Now the ultra relevant Antutu is also here somewhere. So here we are, this is the Antutu result we achieved, and this one places us above the HTC 10 and also above the Galaxy S7 Edge, which is no small feat, but we also scored below the Huawei P10 yet again and below the Galaxy S7. Now let's see how the gamers benchmark is handled. I'm talking about 3D Mark, iStorm Unlimited, and here we have a pretty reputable score. Places us above the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus and the Galaxy Note 5, but also below the LG G5 and the Xperia XZ. I should also mention that in Geekbench 4 we were able to achieve a score that places us in top 5 from all the phones we've tested. It can basically fight all of the flagships from last year, possibly a few from this year, and the reason why it scored so often below the Huawei P10 is the resolution that's lower on that model. I should also mention that it's clearly below the performance of the iPhone 7 Plus, at least in these tests. Now let's see how the temperature behaved. So when running GFX Bench we achieved 38.5 degrees Celsius, and when running the game you saw before, Riptide GP Renegade, 37.2 degrees Celsius, which means there is no overheating here, and that's always good news. Time to discuss the battery. Quite an impressive capacity here. It's 3750 mAh lithium polymer compared to the P9 Plus 3400 mAh. It's a 350 mAh bump. Also the P10 has a 3200 mAh, so once again impressive. Now let's see how this battery has handled our HD video playback in a loop test, and we were able to achieve a time of 12 hours and 7 minutes of video playback, which is quite good. It beats the Huawei P9 Plus's 10 hours and 32 minutes and also beats the iPhone 6 Plus. Still it scores below the Huawei P10 and iPhone 7, and meanwhile we did another test, PC Mark, the famous continuous usage, and this one is slightly underwhelming, 6 hours and 19 minutes. With this result we were able to be placed on the 75th spot from all the phones we've tested, which is quite underwhelming. At least we beat the Motorola Moto M and the Li Echo Li Max 2, but also scored below the Huawei P9 Plus and also the Huawei P10, and I'm guessing this is sort of a, let's say, bug, because I wanted so much more from this battery. Maybe with an update it can get a bump up. Meanwhile the charging is excellent. It charges fully in 1 hour and 47 minutes, and it gets to 25% in 15 minutes and 50% in 30 minutes, which is quite good. Now we also have special settings for this battery, and we can find them right here. So we got the power saving mode and the ultra power saving mode, as well as the low resolution power saving, consumption level, one touch optimization, it's also here. And let's see what else. We got the power intensive prompt, Wi-Fi on during sleep, and in the end these options are quite useful. The ultra power saving will actually trigger a a more discreet interface, so to say. In the end, the video playback is okay, charging is quite fast, but the PC mark was a bit of a letdown. Now, as far as the acoustics are concerned, like we saw on the Mate 9, we got stereophony thanks to this speaker at the bottom and the earpiece, both working in tandem on the device. We have the usual music player here. We're familiar with it from previous Huawei phones. It doesn't have an equalizer, but it has DTS technology, and the actual experience goes something like this. Okay, so you heard the stereophony in action. The volume is quite loud, as you just heard. The sound is clear. When we got a great bass, I have to say, and great high notes, the back tends to vibrate a bit on this handset. Now, let's see what the decibel meter showed for the phone. So, we used the decibel meter to measure the volume, and we achieved 82.1 decibels. This one is at the bottom, and let's see other values. Then we achieved 81.9 decibels, this one at the top. And finally, the biggest value was 89.2 decibels. The previous two were with an audio sample. This one was with Riptide GP Renegade. In real life, the speakers seem much louder. I would even say they go past 90 decibels, so keep that in mind. At least we beat the Huawei P10 Plus, which was at 87.1 decibels. We also beat the LG G5, but scored below the EMUI Plus E and the OnePlus One. I will not even show you the headphones. They've been the same for the past years, the same with the Huawei P8, P9, Mate 8, Mate 9, typical, loud, clear, and sadly not comfy because they have a rigid body. In the end, pretty good acoustics, I would say, louder than the decibel meter shows. And now it's time for the kicker, the camera. We got a dual camera setup at the back. We got Leica optics, this time with Summilux lenses, not Summarit like on the P10. We got a laser focus, we got dual tone flash. These two cameras include a 20 megapixel monochrome sensor and a 12 megapixel RGB sensor. f1.8 aperture, optical image stabilization, laser focus, face detection autofocus, 2x hybrid zoom, the works. And at the front, a megapixel camera with f1.9 aperture and Leica technology as well. Now the camera UI, the camera app starts as pretty fast, and everything you saw on the Mate 9 is replicated here in probably different iconography because we have a fresher emotion UI. So front camera shortcut, a bunch of effects, quite typical I would say. These standard vivid colors or smooth colors. We got the portrait mode also for the main camera. You can play with the aperture however you please with this slider here. We got flash options of course, and the main capture modes, very familiar: monochrome, video, HDR, panorama, night shot, light painting, time-lapse, slow-mo, watermark, audio, no document scan, and you can download more. Now on this side here you can pull this area and do some manual controls like white balance, focus, exposure, shutter, ISO or metering. And now as far as the actual camera goes, fast picture taking, I would say incredibly fast focusing, both manual and automatic, and quite a fluid zoom, at least up to 2x. Then it's a step which you have to pass and a bit of lag may appear. We also have options here for the resolution, GPS tag, grid, audio control, timer, object tracking, capture smiles, and image adjustment, also available with the saturation, contrast and brightness. If you're triggering the video area, new options appear and you can film in Full HD 60 frames per second or 30 frames per second, and of course 4K is also a thing. Now this has been the UI of the handset, of the camera. Time to go to the gallery and see how the cameras have behaved here. As usual, we've taken hundreds of shots, so let's check them out. I'm going to start off with those that have been taken during the day. It was a cloudy day of March. Sometimes the sun came out, sometimes it didn't. It was very windy, as you'll see by the selfies. First things first, we got a pretty good clarity, and already we started off with the HDR. That's making things a bit too white. Objects have a good texture. We took some solid close-ups, as you can well see here. And the close-up aspect is further much enhanced by the fact that the background is a bit blurred. Nice texture, pretty nice colors, although this shade of green wasn't like that in real life, so when it comes to calibrating the reds and the greens, this camera tends to have a little problem. And at least the blues were okay, although this is slightly oversaturated from the real life sky. So these are the main camera captures, excellent clarity, and when you start to zoom in, you will not lose details, at least up till you go past the 2x point. We also did selfies and we played with the portrait feature. As you can see, everything behind us is very blurred and the face is pretty well rendered. I'm talking about skin texture, hair texture, and especially the eyes. While I usually brag about the fact that the skin and the hair is well rendered, this time the eyes were rendered most nicely compared to other flagships out there. Okay, now it's time to check out more colorful items. And once again, the reds are much too vivid, and it's not the fault of the screen. They look the same on my PC, so the greens and reds much too vivid. Also check out the sky. This is basically like a hue that the sky never has. Basically a bit burnt and a bit oversaturated. Pretty good panorama though, and quite generous, 11,520 over 3072 pixels, clear and detailed. Things to remember here, excellent texture and pretty good close-ups. We played with the monochrome feature, achieved some artistic shots as you can see, but we also said that about the P9 and the P9 Plus and also the Mate 9. Okay, so artistic shots, and then it was time to play with the aperture, which you can do when taking the shot, and after it you can refocus on whatever area you want, and you can decrease or increase the level of blur in the shot. No, and let's see another picture. Once you edit it, it goes to the front of the queue. Another one, and you can refocus as you please. You can apply filters, and that's the gimmick of the dual camera. That's what people are doing, that's the bokeh thing. And here we are with more colorful items. This is an area where you can actually finally see got stuck for a bit. Okay, so let's go back to the interface. As I said before, this is an area where you can see those reds I was talking about, unnaturally vivid reds, close to oversaturation point. And one other thing to mention is that the level of detail is quite good here. And another thing, we never had a blurred or missed shot. You can forget about that. Perfect clarity, perfect focusing, and if it weren't for the reds and green, I would say perfect colors. Nice textures and nothing to complain about. The selfies were also quite perfect. And the bokeh effect is spectacular. Not many phones can do that nowadays. Actually, only some flagships, and they can handle it well, but this takes it to a new level. In the end, I feel it's an upgrade from the Huawei P9 Plus and the Mate 8, but it's still slightly below the Huawei Mate 9. It can fight the LG G5 and the iPhone 7 Plus overall, and it takes some solid indoor shots. Check out these ones. We got the HTC U Ultra, and we took some pictures of it, and I would say they're pretty impressive, and even the colors look a bit better indoors. Okay, so we're done with the day. You can feel the upgrade from the Huawei P9 Plus, but the lack of perfection of the colors is a bummer. Maybe solved in the future with an update, who knows. These are the nighttime shots, and if the day was so and so, the night was basically perfect. I cannot complain about anything here. Excellent lighting, details, colors even, no violet or blue hue, the flash is spectacular, perfect texture and clarity. I feel that can even beat the Sony Xperias we tested last year. Nice light painting effect, and check out this one. It's basically a landscape shot. You can zoom in all you want and everything checks out fine. So low light capture is really a strong feature of the phone. It doesn't have big light halos, they're quite reasonably sized. I would even say it beats the Mate 9, Huawei Mate 9, which is no small feature. Certainly beats the Xperias and the iPhone 7 Plus. It can even fight mano a mano with the Galaxy S7. Certainly top 5 or even top 3 material at night. Okay, now that we're done with the photos, time to go to the videos. We shot videos in MP4 format, Full HD, 30 or 60 frames per second, and we also did the 4K video. Luckily we have a separate camera area. I'm going to start off with the stabilization test. The camera has optical image stabilization, and to be honest, I found it to be a bit underwhelming, simply for the fact that you sometimes lose focus. So each step I take on these steps makes the focus get lost and makes the image vibrate, and also this green is totally unnatural, so the stabilization was a bit of a bummer for me. I've seen worse, to be honest, even on flagships, but in the end I expected a bit more. And I'll remind you that the iPhone 7 Plus also had a similar problem. Another video, this time starting with a refocus, unnatural colors but perfect clarity, good exposure setup. In general I was happy with the clarity of the filming, the frame rate, the bit rate, but check out the sky. That blue is totally unnatural, burnt and oversaturated. So the problem of the colors from the photos spills into the videos. Okay, so this one has been the 60 frames per second video, and this one is the 4K clip. Somehow this one looks stunning. On the PC even the colors are okay, clarity is perfect, perfect lighting as well, and nice exposure change. And we did another video in the same area, this time full HD, and the colors went rogue again. So I would say the video taking is quite good, except for colors and maybe stabilization, because we had higher expectations there. Somehow, don't ask me how, when you film with the front camera, the stabilization is a bit better. Once again, do not ask me how. I felt that it's able to stabilize better, probably because the dual cameras haven't yet been developed properly for proper stabilization. Okay, now aside from that we have low light videos. Now let's find those. And here once again we took some steps and we met with the flicker and the focus loss on account of the poor stabilization. But the clarity was perfect, nice lighting, solid colors, good focus here. And I forgot to mention that the microphone behaved like a champ during the day and during the night filming. We do have some big streetlight halos, as you can see, much bigger than during the day, than during the photo capture at night. And if you zoom in, you lose a bit of details, a bit, not much. At least unlike some Xperias from last year, we don't have any violet or blue hues to bother us. So I would say it's a satisfying low light video capture, but in the end, we got a problem with the stabilization. Now let's go to other aspects like the web browser. The pre-installed web browser here is Chrome, and I'm going to use it to access our website gsmdome.com. As you can see, not the fastest in the world, I would say reasonable speed, and the benchmarks are actually quite hot for this browser. We achieved very good results in SunSpider and Velamo. I was actually surprised by how good they are. Anyways, you will do input via this keyboard, Swift key, with swipe support and big keys to use, and then it's time to go to the connectivity. Got an USB Type-C port here at the bottom. This one is a dual SIM phone, one of them is a hybrid. It also lets you use a micro SD. This is the connectivity area. We got here LTE with loads of carriers supported, GPS, GLONASS, Galileo and BDS, Bluetooth 4.2, Wi-Fi A, B, GNAC, NFC, shown here, and infrared emitter at the top, which can be put to use with a special app, and we should find it here. Smart controller, you can control your TV set, you can add something else like an air conditioner, set-top box, camera, etc., including projector. Okay, now as far as the dialer goes, we got it here, bunch of options, harassment filter, settings, there's pocket mode, there's virtual HD call, and a few more features. Things to remember, we got loud and clear calls and great noise cancelling. We did not forget about the connectivity, which has been measured in turn via speed test. So we went up to 65 MB per second in downloads on 4G and 45 MB per second uploads, which are also on 4G. In Wi-Fi, 31 MB per second downloads, 25 MB per second uploads. I would say we are within limits, no record breaking, but still within limits. Time to talk about the OS, UI and applications. This is a familiar interface, you've seen it as the Emotion UI 5.0 on Huawei Mate 9, and now it's 5.1 with some additions. So 5.0 brought a clear and new interface. We got a black background here with blue toggles, we got wider notifications, cleaner, white without the timeline from before. Multitasking is triggered like this, swiping on the side of the home button, and it's now shown as a carousel. Previously it was a horizontally scrolling list of thumbnails. And the quick settings are more elegant like this, and the home button has multiple roles If you tap it once, it's a back button. If you keep it pressed harder, it's a home button. If you swipe it to the side, it's the multitasking area. But of course, you can implement the virtual buttons from the settings here as usual. Now let's see what happens if you keep the home screen pressed. You can trigger the wallpapers, widgets and transitions area as well as settings. Widgets are those ones, quite good looking. Some of them stock, some of them from Huawei and partners. These are the transitions, and finally these are the settings: home layout, auto align, shake, loop and auto rotate. Other than that, if you swipe up from the lock screen, you'll see some interesting options. Let's do it again. These are basically shortcuts and a few useful options that some people may want to use. And by the way, Emotion UI brings machine learning. Basically, it allocates more RAM to your favorite applications. Now, a novelty that comes in Emotion UI 5.1 compared to 5.0 is the highlights area. The highlights reel will be created from a selection of your shots. It goes like this. You can select the type of filter, the music, you can choose what shots to be included, and finally aspects like font, music start, square and all that. And in the end, something like this will be created. Basically like HTC Zoe or whatever Facebook and Google Plus have been doing for the past year. Okay, so that's about it. Time to go to the settings and analyze them. They draw inspiration from the stock Nougat experience. We got a search area here, we got suggestions. If you're in an option, you get a side menu and you can choose the home screen style with drawer or standard without. Usually Huawei opts for the without approach. We got display, sound, notification and status bar, and we also have the navigation key. You have here a variety of options. As you can see, there is a virtual nav bar if you're missing that. Fingerprint scanner, smart assistance, we got one hand UI, we got the glove mode, touch disable mode, and come on, we have the do not disturb, permissions, app twin, allowing you to use two accounts on the same app, and finally advanced settings. Here you can find the simple mode and other things. If you want to talk about the security, that cannot be done unless you're using a fingerprint. The fingerprint scanner is embedded here within the home button, and you can secure it with a pin. Okay, and then register it like this. About 10 or 12 steps should be enough. Vibrations will signal it via feedback and should be done. Okay, successfully enrolled, and now let's see just how efficient it is. Instant, I would say, 90 degrees and 180 degrees. As you can see, works like a charm, so no problem whatsoever here. Time to discuss the applications, and before that I have to mention that some people objected that this new approach is weird. Having one button for 3 features should be weird, but it's actually not. It's quite comfy. It grows on you to use this button for back, for home, and also for multitasking. So 3-in-1 works fine here. Now, as far as the pre-installed applications go, the list is quite generous. Some would say overly generous. 50 pre-installed applications. We got the like of TripAdvisor, Todoist, Teams, we got videos, we got YouTube, we got Torch, sound recorder, slides, sheets, the usual Google package, plus Health with a new interface which looks kind of hot compared to the one before. High Game if you want to play some games that have been aggregated from Huawei, and then Booking.com and a few other partners. Basically 50 apps, but you can uninstall them. So if you want to get rid of Todoist, there's the uninstall option here. That's it in a nutshell. This has been the review of the Huawei P10 Plus. Time for the verdict. So on the Pro side, we have quite an okay screen in spite of its drawbacks, which may be solved by an update. We have great performance, nobody can deny that. The price is actually quite good compared to the rivals. Just you see what the LG G6 and the Galaxy S7 will be priced at, and this one will seem like a better option. We get still a solid camera when it comes to low light, close-ups, bokeh and clarity. That's something to remember. And the video is also not that bad. And in the end, the battery is good if you want video playback. Plus we have a good audio and some very nice selfies. I feel I haven't highlighted them at all. That portrait feature is quite nice. Those are the pros. Now on the cons side, I'm going to have to mention obviously the fact that the design hasn't been changed for a few years. The fact that there are some drawbacks for the screen, like the angle and the colors. the stabilization of the video is quite poor when filming, the colors of the pics and videos should be better, and the continuous usage time was a bit below our expectations. In the end, the Huawei P10 Plus manages to upgrade the P9 Plus, but somehow it gets cannibalized by the Huawei Mate 9, which should get cheaper as the time passes, while this one should stay the same price for at least 1 or 2 more months. There are some drawbacks which I think will be solved by updates, like the battery, like the camera, but in the end it feels like a Galaxy S6 or a Galaxy S7 being compared to the Note model before it, and I'm talking about the Mate 9. The main problem of the P10 Plus is not hardware or software, is the Mate 9. The two can fight each other to the death. Nobody knows who wins. This one wins a bit in performance, but the camera, well, I'm going to give that to the Mate 9. This has been it from gsn.com, the review of the Huawei P10 Plus. Bye bye.